is he bulking, putting on all this muscle, eating bird food? Coach Greg, in today's video, Tristyn Lee puts on 40 pounds in 10 months. And so we're going to go over this change. Did he in fact do it natural? Why is it that he was able to put on more muscle in the last 10 months than in the last 5 years?
175. Show you guys a little physique update of what I'm looking like.
And so first things first, the guy's about 5'3". I've met him. He states he's 5'5". Any guy under 5'6", they automatically add 2 inches to their height. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. I'm sorry, ask any other short king out there. All of them add 2 inches to their height. And so no, Tristyn Lee is not 5'5". And so for him to weigh 175 pounds, up from 137 only 10 months ago, there's no way that I believe that he's natural. Maybe he is, but me personally, I don't believe it. And so what I think happened is he not only went on a bulk, I also think he went on performance-enhancing drugs. You know me. I don't dislike Tristyn. I like the guy. But I'm not going to sit here and make a video and say that I think he put on close to 40 pounds of muscle in 10 months while being natural from going on a calorie surplus. Maybe he did. Maybe it's possible. I just don't believe it.
The physique has been progressing relatively well ever since I got out of that never-ending cutting cycle or maintaining cycle.
You know, 38 pounds, mostly muscle in under a year, that's relatively well. And so had he only put on 20 pounds of muscle, that would have been horrible. Only 20 pounds in 10 months. Progress, it's at a standstill. I'm hardly doing any gains whatsoever. Now, had I put on 100 pounds in 10 months, that would be great gains. But 38 pounds, 10 months, relatively well.
Relatively well ever since I got out of that never-ending cutting cycle or maintaining cycle.
I heard cutting cycle, maintaining cycle. Now, many of you are going to say, oh, you see, main gaining, it doesn't work. Coach Greg had it wrong all along. Yet what you haven't considered is I've literally used Tristyn Lee in previous videos of an example of a man who needs to bulk. I've never stated that you should maintain under 5% body fat and try to put on muscle. Very, very difficult. And so it is in fact possible that Tristyn Lee is natural if the reason he wasn't putting on muscle was because he was underfeeding himself for all of these years. If you're not eating enough, you're single-digit body fat, or in Tristyn Lee's case, under 5%, how can you possibly put on muscle? And so by eating in a calorie surplus, his body finally has the nutrients needed to build muscle, and that's why he was able to put on 38 pounds. And so in the end, is he natural? Is he enhanced? I don't know. But really, does it in fact matter?
Carbohydrates have been very high, 550 plus grams per day, week over week increasing.
In case you don't remember, Tristyn Lee promoted the carnivore diet. Y'all remember that? He had that diet with no carbs whatsoever. He was only eating animal meats and so on. And so he shifted from the carnivore diet to now eating carbs. We all said, imagine if Tristyn Lee ate carbs. And so he's now eating 550 grams of carbs a day. And so looking back, do you not think that if Tristyn Lee had had a normal diet, you know, from all various food groups, the diet that I promote, that perhaps he would have been able to put on all this muscle over the years as a teenager? Can you see how going on a fad diet is nonsensical?
I was very insecure with myself. I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like how skinny I was. I didn't like my height. I didn't like a lot of things about myself.
And so imagine the pressure. Tristyn Lee, famous for being shredded his entire life. He had to live up to social media's expectations. He was known as the guy with under 5% body fat, the shorter guy, tons of muscle that everyone wanted to meet.
125 grams of white rice, jasmine rice. It's about 100 grams worth of carbs, 4 ounces of sockeye salmon, smoked, and then 100 grams of cucumber.
And so I'd like to go over meal one. He says he has 125 grams of jasmine rice. Now, he did not say if that was dry weight or cooked. And so I put in 125 grams of rice on my plate. This is cooked. 125 grams, I looked it up, it has 37 grams of carbs. And so Tristyn Lee claims it has 100 grams of carbs. And so he must have gone by the dry weight. Only thing is the dry weight for that much rice would be a far greater portion size. And so I'm not sure if he's weighing his meals accurately. Perhaps he made a mistake. But remember this, he suggests it's very important to track your foods. It's so important that even if you are tracking your foods, most people are getting it wrong. When I look at that meal and I'm thinking this is Tristyn Lee bulking on some mega high calorie diet, I'm looking and I'm seeing hardly any food and calories on that plate. 100 grams of cucumbers, maybe 20 calories. 4 ounces of salmon, it's a schmuck serving. 125 grams of rice. I could eat double that portion for breakfast and be hungry before lunch. And so how is he bulking, putting on all this muscle, eating bird food?
Plans in the future to compete again, jump back on stage or no?
Man, so I'm going through a cut right now. I was at 310. And I'm now down to about 260.
And so when you're a bodybuilder, the question is going to be asked, when are you competing next? And Noel Diesel, he's been on again, off again for years. Personally, I don't think that Noel Diesel nor Tristyn Lee should ever step foot on a bodybuilding stage. Many people get into working out, to competing, bodybuilding, to get into it to make up for certain insecurities. They may not like their bodies. They perhaps suffer from body dysmorphia. And I can tell you this, when you diet to sub 5% body fat and you're judged by your front double bicep, is your waist small enough? How do your abs look? It can warp your own perception of yourself.
And I'm actually pretty happy, comfortable where I'm at. And it's kind of initiated this thought process of doing a show. So I'm sitting on the fence.
When people ask me if they should compete, I say this. If you're 100% certain that you want to compete, then go for it. If you're on the fence, you're thinking maybe, the answer is no. Unless you're 100% dedicated. It's all in, don't do it. Entering a bodybuilding competition is so hard. It can screw up your mind and change your perception of yourself. And trust me, it's not worth it unless you can handle it. And if you have certain insecurities, you're not very confident already, or if perhaps you've been triggered, you may in fact suffer from an ED, it's not worth it. It's too dangerous. Tristyn Lee has been suffering mentally from eating problems for years. Do you really think it's safe for him to now diet back down to sub 5% body fat? He's just barely scratching the surface on trying to get a normal life yet again.
Haven't quite decided on something, but
It's exciting still.
yeah.
As soon as you
The
start
more
to
I'm
do
seeing
that.
my physique change, the more I'm considering it.
Noel Diesel, his entire life, has been battling to put on the size. He wants to be bigger, badder than ever before. It's never good enough. 310 pounds is not enough. And once you set foot on stage, people there to criticize you, especially when you're famous, millions of followers, imagine how much harder it's going to be. The social media pressures to look a certain way, it's going to be very difficult to live up to. And so my advice, don't compete. You don't need it. You've already done that, been there. Is it actually worth it?
So you in your bulk, and I see you're just shredded all the time. But even now, striations in the chest, and he's like in peak bulk here.
And notice Noel's comments. Hey, Tristyn, even on your bulk, you're still shredded. I see the striations everywhere. You look incredible. And so imagine the pressure for Tristyn Lee to always be shredded. Even on a bulk, he's shredded. Does he actually look fat at this point? Does he look like he's crossed 20% body fat? Or does he not more so look like what you would wish you could look like at the end of your cut? And so when I state you should main gain, remember what I say you should do that at? At a healthy body fat for you. And what percent do I suggest? 15%. Tristyn Lee closer to 10%. And so even Tristyn Lee at this point could easily continue to bulk. He's still very lean. And if he is in fact natural, very difficult to put on muscle when you're single digit body fat. On steroids, of course, it can make it easier. And I'm not sure if he's natural or enhanced. I personally don't think he's natural, but who knows? It could have been the fact that he was main gaining at sub 5% body fat for far too long. And now that he's eating more, that's why he's put on muscle. And so does it really make sense that Tristyn Lee would now go on a cut to compete in a bodybuilding competition? He's only just now getting over the years of damage he's done.
It's difficult because I spent the last 16 years chasing weight to put on as much mass as possible, and just pulling back from those numbers was a bit of a mental adjustment. I'm getting comfortable.
And so you can see clearly Noel is not comfortable with his weight. He's 310, he's 260. He's not sure if he should compete, if he shouldn't compete. He's been chasing the scale, trying to get bigger every single year. And so to suddenly put himself in a bodybuilding competition, get shredded, perhaps diet down to 230, is that really going to be good for his mental and physical health? I don't think so. And I don't want to sound like the negative Nancy, but remember, I don't want people to suffer in silence. I don't want them to put themselves through things that are not healthy. Competing in bodybuilding, one of the most difficult things you could ever put your body through. Notice how I haven't competed in 4 years. Why do you think that's the case? I'm fairly shredded, 7% body fat off season. And notice I'm not competing even though I'm only about 3% body fat of where I need to be at my leanest. It's simply not worth it. It's so difficult that even when you're at 7% in the off season, it's still difficult.
One of the first days we went there, we met like Bradley Martin, filmed with him and stuff, and then we went to Gold's Gym, trained with like Shawn Rhoden before he passed away and stuff.
And so imagine he's 16 years of age, he's meeting Bradley Martin, Shawn Rhoden, all these various superstars. People talking about how shredded he is. Look at this guy's physique. He's growing so fast on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, getting millions of followers. And so what do? You keep doing it. If they want to lean, I'll show them lean. And so year after year, he was perpetually on a cut, trying to maintain single digit and in fact sub 5% body fat. That plays a very large toll on your mind. He was on a carnivore diet. What teenager is not eating carbs? Imagine that. And now he's 21 years of age, finally eating a more normal diet. But do you really think it's 100% normal? He's weighing every morsel of food he can eat. He put on 38 pounds in 10 months and he thinks he's getting marginal gains. Doesn't even think it's outstanding.
Initially, my plan was to do a full cut from this point from 175 going all the way back down to whatever my new stage weight or my new stage leanness weight would be.
And so why exactly would you do that? Why would you go from your current weight right now, 175 pounds, 10% body fat, looking incredible, looking amazing, making all those gains, just to diet down to your new stage weight just for fun to later compete later in the year? Why would you diet down just to see yourself for a brief moment and not even compete? I just want to see what I'll look like if I was in stage shape right now, and then maybe later I'll compete. Makes no sense. This should be your new goal. This should be your new idea of shredded and peeled. This should be your bottom end point. Never get leaner than this ever again. Why would you? What is the point? What do you have to prove? You've already proven you can get sub 5% body fat. You've done it for years. Why not now prove how strong you can get? I remember meeting you, how strong you were on the bench press, the dumbbell presses. Incredible. It would seem a lot healthier to enter a powerlifting competition and show just how much you can bench press. And remember, if he actually competes in a bodybuilding competition, if he is in fact in a non-tested organization, the physiques that are going to be there are going to be phenomenal. Mind-blowing. You may think that Tristyn Lee has a world-class physique, that he could win any competition he enters. Have you seen the guys trying to turn pro? Yeah, he could do pretty good in a novice category at a local bodybuilding show, but if he enters a very challenging show at the national level, the physiques he's up against, you will be mind-blown what they look like. And so I don't want to get discouraged, and I tell everyone, don't compare yourself to other people. But if you're literally competing in a competition against other people, it's hard not to compare. And so my opinion, and remember, it's my opinion alone, I don't think it's a smart or wise decision to enter a competition when you're not mentally prepared for the outcomes that could ensue.
Spoke with my coach, kind of looked in the mirror, looked at the progress that I'd been making and made the decision that it's probably better for me to not go all the way back down to stage weight.
Remember, he's been 10 months of consistently bulking and he's at 10% body fat. My idea of bulking, if you're actually bulking, you're not going to maintain 10% body fat the entire time. And so if you say you're bulking up for months, but your body fat is remaining consistent at 10%, and you're increasing calories and you're not getting fatter, but you're putting on muscle, do you know what that's actually called? It's called maintaining. That's when you keep your body fat the same and you put on muscle. Some people could argue, no, it's a lean bulk. You're putting on muscle, but you're staying the same level of leanness. Well, at that point, we're splitting hairs. But what I want you to realize is even at 10% body fat, if he is in fact natural, that is very, very lean. And most people would not be able to put on this much muscle while being this lean. I always recommend 15% body fat for main gaining, but remember, every individual is different. Some people are able to main gain at a lower body fat percentage, perhaps as lean as 10% as Tristyn Lee is doing. If it's working for him, continue doing it. Don't go on a cut. You don't need to cut when you're already shredded. And so the message I want everyone watching this to understand is Tristyn Lee on his bulk is freaking peeled. He's lights out, redonkulous shredded. He doesn't need to diet. There's no reason for him to think he's fat or that he's lost his abs or any of that. The guy looks incredible. That is amazing. It doesn't even make sense, which is why I even question whether he could do this in a natural environment. Hopefully he is. I don't know if he is or isn't. I don't actually care. But I want the message to be for anyone watching this. Don't expect to put on 38 pounds in 10 months from bulking. Don't think you can copy what Tristyn Lee does and main gain at 10% body fat. Don't think that main gaining doesn't work because Tristyn Lee had main gain for years and not put any muscle. He was far too lean. Under 5% body fat makes no sense even if you're not natty.
10 months of consistently bulking with the additional carbs of gaining 1 pound per week, and I'm still relatively lean now that I'm at the 175 point.
10% body fat, relatively lean. Leaner than 99% of the population, relatively lean. What's next, Coach Greg? Is relatively lean? Of course not, I'm freaking shredded. And so let me know in the comment section, do you believe that Tristyn Lee or Noel Diesel should ever do a bodybuilding competition? I know you want to see him do the competition, but for their own mental health, do you think it's advisable? Remember, I'm looking after these guys. I understand the dangers of competing in bodybuilding. I've competed in 59 competitions. I've coached thousands of athletes from around the world. I don't want them to compete in a show if it's going to negatively affect their health. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algorithm, like the video if you liked it, watch one of those 2 bloops. If you're interested in a healthy diet to lose weight, keep it off for the rest of your life, consider Cookbook 3.0 and or the Circle Diet Book. Also, the training books, we have so many of these books. Also, coaching plans by me and my team, phone consults, and even cameos. And until next time, I am out.